So let me just start by introducing the hosts of this event. Silvana Koch-Mehrin, the president of Women Political Leader, please. And this event is, as you know, co-hosted by Women Political Leaders and the government of Iceland, so it's a great pleasure and honor to have with us Katrín Jakobsdóttir. We call everybody by first name in Iceland, so I say Katrín, the Prime Minister of Iceland. And of course, last but not least, because we also work on this with every party in the Parliament of Iceland, the Speaker of our Parliament, Steingrímur Sigfússon. So without further ado, and just to make sure that we start, people are coming in, please find your seats. Katrín Jakobsdóttir, the Prime Minister of Iceland, please, the floor is yours. Was this fast?
Yes.
Okay.
Fast as always with you, Hanna Birna. Dear guests, I'm so happy to be able to once more welcome you to the Reykjavik Global Forum Women Leaders. And as Hanna Birna mentioned, she spoke about the wind. Well, the weather is always a little bit difficult in Reykjavik in November. I remember last year when you invited everybody to the Blue Lagoon, and I think everybody kind of flew over the Blue Lagoon, but I think it was also an experience to remember. Now, this international forum serves as a platform for women leaders from across the world to connect with one another, share thoughts and ideas, and form policies and strategies to make the world a better place for women and girls, which is such an important goal for all of us, and not a small task. As we approach the year 2020, no country in the world has yet achieved full gender equality. In fact, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 5 on gender equality is the goal that probably most countries are the furthest from achieving, which is something to think about. And that speaks to the urgency of multiplying our efforts to build an equal and sustainable future. It is my dream, actually, that Iceland will be the first country to achieve Sustainable Development Goal number 5. But we still have a long way to go. Now, next year marks the 25th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, where countries of the world united around an ambitious roadmap towards gender equality. The anniversary offers a welcome opportunity to evaluate the progress we have made since then, but also where we have failed and where we have witnessed backlashes. 2020 also marks a very significant anniversary for women's rights here in Iceland, and I want to pay attention to one of them in particular here today. Next year, as Mrs. Vigdís Finnbogadóttir celebrates her 90th birthday, it will be 4 decades since she was elected the President of Iceland. The first woman to hold that position, and also the first democratically elected female president in the world. Her election was preceded by women's political organizing, most notably on the Women's Day Off in 1975 here in Iceland, when 9 out of every 10 women in Iceland refused to perform any paid or unpaid work for the day, insisting on their contribution to be recognized and rewarded in a male-dominated society. Vigdís' election, which she dedicated to the daughters of Iceland, was then followed by a surge in women's political participation, including in relation to the cross-political women's parties that were formed in the 1980s. Actually, Vigdís' election was considered controversial at the time, but it did not take a long time for her to unite the nation behind her back. I think every Icelander would say that we are all very proud and grateful for her leadership and her massive contribution to amplify and reshape Iceland's voice on the global stage. So she has been a very important role model, not just for women of Iceland, but for a whole generation of Icelanders. Now, Vigdís' career and education was centered on culture and language, both of which were deeply reflected in her presidency. And to mark next year's anniversary, I'm very happy to tell you about this here for the first time. The government of Iceland, in cooperation with the Vigdís Finnbogadóttir Institute of Foreign Languages at the University of Iceland, has decided to establish the Vigdís International Cultural Award. This award will be granted for the first time in 2020 with the purpose of strengthening research and development in academic studies of languages, culture, and communication. So, I do hope you get the opportunity to get yourself acquainted with what this important institution is doing, but I also hope that the award will carry the spirit of Vigdís for future generations, because, as I mentioned, she was such an important role model for many generations of young people, an advocate for women's rights locally and globally, receiving her inspiration from women from all walks of life and from all corners of the world. And it is so interesting to note that during her presidency, she actually pinpointed the big issues of today: the environment, women's rights, and the importance of languages and cultural diversity. So I could say that everything she focused on has since then become matters of grave urgency in our politics and societies. Today's leaders have no option but to put action against climate change on the top of the political agenda. And I think Vigdís was a very important role model in all her work around the environment and climate here in Iceland. Now, I won't make this any longer. I just wish you all a very good conference. I know you will have a happy stay in Iceland. Thank you so much again for being here, and I'm looking forward to the 2 days ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Katrín, and thank you for making sure we mention Vigdís Finnbogadóttir. She is, of course, here with us this morning. She is the oasis of the conference, so she's always with us. Thank you so much, Vigdís. And to all the other, I should, of course, have started in the usual way. You might have noticed I didn't say honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, like the round of sort of ministers and round of parliamentarians and so on and so forth. This is because we do it the Icelandic style. You are all seen as conversationists, so there is no sort of division of that. So we address the audiences all with the same phrase, dear conversationists. So having said that, and yet on another informal note, Steingrímur, the floor is yours.
Well, I start with distinguished guests then, or distinguished conversationists. I think I will start by giving credit to the designers of the stage that put me up there with the three ladies, made sure I got the smallest chair and a pink one. So very well done. It is an honor and pleasure to welcome you all on behalf of Alþingi, the Parliament of Iceland, as one of the hosts of this important event. Some of you have been with us before. Welcome back, and others are coming for the first time. And we really appreciate your participation. The topics of this conference are very interesting, and they are very broad. Not just is it on gender and generation parity, but also things like security, credibility in the area of misinformation, and so forth. All very important and valuable themes for discussion. In my mind, there are two highlights in international political events in Iceland every year. That's the Arctic Circle Assembly, was here last month, and now the Reykjavik Global Forum. You might think these are two very different events and have little in common, but when you look at them more closely, it's not so. They do share a lot of similarities. Both are high priority issues in Iceland's foreign policy, and they both, at the end of the day, very much evolve around the human habitat, not least the conditions for women and children. And that's what Iceland likes to prioritize in its foreign policy very much, be it the Arctic issues, be it gender issues, or development aid. We have in recent years put in more and more focus, stronger and stronger focus on women's role and the families and children. And that's where these two hugely important international events meet in terms of Iceland's foreign policy. Also, the fact that these issues are global, they are transnational, and that's an interesting development that has been more and more apparent in the last decades, that issues that were dealt with locally and considered local issues have moved to the world stage in such a way that they are now global, they are now transnational. This is environment, and these are also issues of gender equality and human rights. And of course, women's rights are human rights, and as such, the responsibility of all of us. And this is very important also in the context that is becoming more and more apparent here at the Global Forum, and that's where women from different parts of life are engaging in dialogue. That's business, academia, politics, science, and so forth. Now, we the politicians or parliamentarians have a tendency to focus very much on women's political participation, important as that is, of course, but I'm going to move out of that role now and look more at the importance of gender equality in terms of the well-being societies, in terms of national prosperity, which in my mind is pretty obvious that the more equal countries are, the bigger the participation of women in the labor market, in the business community, the better those countries are doing. And that's, of course, for very, very obvious reasons. Now, we have been trying to promote this in Iceland in many ways. We have quotas on executives in corporations. And of course, in our law, for a long time, we've had equal pay and so on. But we are still struggling. And if we relax for a moment, then there is a backlash. And sad to say, we had suffered a backlash in last parliamentary elections, moving from almost 50-50 down to 40-60 today. So that just goes to show that these are issues that we constantly need to work on. We can never allow ourselves to lean back and say, now it's done. Now we have full equality. It's never going to be like that. It's a constant struggle, and it should involve all of us, both men and women, and not least also the younger generation needs to be included. Now, I'm not going to bore you with a long speech, as you have more important things to do than to listen to me. That's to say, get the conference going, up and going, and all the interesting events. So I wish you success. Repeat, you're most warmly welcome. It's like in this time of the year, it's very nice for us to have something that sort of lifts the day. It's a bit cold and a bit dark, you know, and having a powerful gathering like this one is really, really welcome in the dark November month. So welcome again, and I will close in Icelandic and say góða skemmtun, and that could loosely translate into have fun. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Steingrímur. And again, our thanks to the Parliament of Iceland and to the government of Iceland. This could not be happening here if it wasn't for the total and sincere support of the politicians in Iceland. So again, a warm thank you for all of us. I just want to remind us before I give the floor to my friend and the president of WPL, Silvana Koch-Mehrin, that the theme of this year's conference, as always, is power together, reminding us that we can do it together. And I was thinking when I was listening to Steingrímur, I once heard an Icelandic woman say the reason why gender equality has been managed in Iceland is because of courageous women and kind men. So men in Iceland have done their bit when it comes to gender equality. So that's also their effort that has brought us here. But the floor is yours, Silvana.
Dear friends, dear conversationists, I'm so happy to see you here. Welcome to Iceland. Welcome to many of you coming back to Iceland. I see many familiar faces, and it's wonderful to see this community grow and have you bring people, friends with you here to introduce to this community. So welcome from my side, from Women Political Leaders. Power Together is the theme of the Reykjavik Global Forum. And all of you here, you 500 amazing, outstanding people from as far as Australia, China, Rwanda, Zimbabwe, many European countries, US, Latin America, really, truly global community. You all are here in this room and you hold tremendous influence. You're leaders in your various areas, in business, in politics, in organizations, NGOs, and you can really move things. So let's just imagine what would happen if all this influence would be put together and we really truly live power together. So not pushing and fighting and struggling, succeeding alone, but doing this together. So much more than we can imagine could be achieved in such a higher speed, in such tremendous impact. And while we say the conversation starts here, as conversationists, we share experiences and best practices, also discuss the next big, bold ideas and how we can make this true. We want to this year take one step further. We want to really create this community of actions. And how we do this is we asked all of you, we invited all of you to come forward with a pledge. A pledge by you as an individual or on behalf of your country, on behalf of your company. A pledge of what you want to do between November 2019 and November 2020 when we come together again. So what is it that you want to shake up, that you want to move forward? And this commitment in front of the world, and thank you CBS for broadcasting it to the world, but also in front of this community of conversationists to cheer along these pledges, is a really powerful tool. We've received many, many amazing pledges, and some of them we will present tomorrow. All of them you can have a look at outside of the room here. These pledges, they are meant to inspire, to motivate, to up the ambition and up the speed of change to make really these bigger steps needed to get to a world where there is equality between women and men, but where there's also urgent issues like climate change, like conditions at the workplace, like peace and security matters to be addressed. And the different leaders in this room have different areas of expertise for their pledges. So I believe this is really a big step forward, and let's take this action together. Let me extend a special welcome to the Girl to Leader delegates that are in this room. The young women, the next generation voices that are so important to be heard and to be included in all those discussions. Those women, I think, that will be truly humbling and inspiring for all of us. There are activists, there are survivors, there are just really young women leaders from whom we can all learn and also be reminded of what really matters in this world. So welcome to you, and I'm really hoping to hear your voices loud and strong throughout those 2 days. 2 years, of course, but 2 days to start with. So let me end by thanking our wonderful co-host, the government, the Parliament of Iceland. It's a true pleasure to work together. You've already gotten a bit of a taste. It's quite informal here, and it's very straightforward. No means no, yes means yes. And so it's quite clear what works and what doesn't. And while this country is a bit of a maybe unusual place to come to in stormy and dark November, it's a great place to get things done. So it's a great place to have this community of action launched. And finally, thank you to all those partners that make this forum possible, from the different stakeholders, from the companies, from the international institutions, organizations, and institutions. And thanks to all of you who have taken the time to travel here, to spend the time here, and I hope you all get a lot of inspiration, new friends, and ideas in the next 2 days. Thank you.